Hello everyone, today I'll be narrating 3 new creepyposts that I found off of the Let's Not Meet subreddit. Liking this video and subscribing to my channel helps me a lot. After you've heard these stories, let me know what you think of them in the comments below. But without further ado, let's dive straight into their experiences.
These are their stories.
To give you a little background about myself, I'm a female from a South Asian country. That being said, there are some states which are relatively safe. 2019 had been a rough year for me, but by October I started feeling rather better and decided to take a solo trip for my birthday. I spoke to some friends and decided to head to the small village down south. My brother helped convince my overprotective mother as he'd already been there. To put her mind at ease, I decided to get pepper spray. Unfortunately, we couldn't find one, so I kept a bottle of deodorant and a knife handy. I decided to stay there for 5 days and booked a room at a guest house only for 2 days, thinking I'll check out this guest house that my friend had suggested and hopefully move there. To tell you a little bit more about this village, everyone is extremely friendly and warm, and they have tourists coming from all over the globe. Once I got to the room, I was a little paranoid because it seemed a bit dingy. Forget about a security system, the latch on the door was barely functional. The first night was a bit unsettling, but nothing happened. The next day was my birthday, so I rented a bike and went on exploring the village. Sometime after lunch, I decided to check out the guest house that my friend had recommended, which was a little secluded but extremely peaceful. As I reached there, I was greeted by the owner, who showed me around. This place had big huts on one side and a row of small rooms on the opposite side. I decided to take the latter as it was cheaper and I didn't plan on being in the room much anyway. We exchanged numbers and I told him I'll move in the next day. The next day, I got there and had lunch with the owner and he told me about the history of the place and a bit about himself. I realized that he wasn't around when my friend had been there. I was trying to read him, seeing if I was getting any creepy vibes from him since I was going to spend 2 nights there. I didn't see any red flags in particular. After lunch, I went to a restaurant that was right behind the guest house. I met some of the locals whom I was already acquainted with. Along with them were 2 new guys, one of whom was from my city. The 3 of us instantly clicked and started hanging out. Once it got dark, we came back to my guest house to chill, when the owner told us that he's planning a bonfire with some of his guests/friends who were sitting at another table. An hour passed as we ate and played cards, but those guys didn't seem like they were in the mood for a bonfire and soon left the place. Since the owner had already set things up, we decided to spend some time by the fire with him. We were all sitting and talking up until midnight, when the other 2 boys decided to take off as they weren't staying there. I told the owner that I head back to my room too. He tried to convince me to stay a bit longer, but I didn't want to be alone with him. My room's door had around 4 to 5 locks, but only 2 of them were functional. So I locked them and realized that the windows facing each other did not have any panes and the curtains were made with scraps of thin cloth, which meant anyone could peep inside and see everything. So I went into the bathroom to change and clean up. As soon as I stepped down and started taking my stuff from my bag, I heard someone whisper my name, twice. My heart skipped a beat and I froze for a few seconds. I decided to ignore it and quickly shut all the lights. Before going to bed, I decided to keep the bin right in front of the door, so in case someone tries to open it, it would make some noise. I took out my deodorant and knife and kept it right next to my pillow before laying in bed. I kept looking at both the windows on the side to see if anyone's outside. After about half an hour, the metallic door started rattling violently, as if someone was trying to force it open. Instantly, I stood up and got hold of the knife and deodorant. My mouth went dry and my heart started beating fast. I didn't know if I should scream because I only knew of one other girl who was staying in the opposite hut. After what felt like forever, the door stopped shaking and I collapsed into the bed. I checked the windows to see if anyone was walking by, but no one did. I tried to think of what it could have been. Maybe it was just the wind, but the curtains hadn't moved one bit. It had to be a person. I don't know when, but I passed out soon after. I woke up around 6 AM to see that it was almost bright outside. I closed my eyes and tried to go back to sleep, when it started happening again. Frantically, I shut up in bed again, ready to attack. But once again, it stopped after a few minutes. I didn't understand what was happening. I went closer to the door and got a look at the bin that I had kept by the door. It had moved away from its original position. Yes, something definitely happened. Not knowing what to do, I decided to go back to sleep. When I got out of the room later, I tried to read the owner's face, but it was just as hard to read as the day before. What worried me the most was that I had to spend another night in that room. I decided to not let that thought spoil the day and went out with the 2 friends I'd made for a trek and then to watch the sunset from a hilltop, where all the locals gathered to play music in the evening, including that owner. My new friends and I went somewhere else after that and then around 10 decided to head back to my guest house for dinner. As I was nearing the hotel, I got a text from the owner asking where I was. I didn't think much of it because it was late and he was probably wondering if I was safe. I didn't reply as we were almost there. When we sat down on the futon, the owner said I was just about to text you and show me the message he typed on his phone. I was just thinking about you. I'm not sure what that meant. So I looked at his face trying to read him and realized he was trying to do the same. Quickly I decided to act normal and told him where we were. We all sat, met a couple more people, ate, smoked, and around 11, the guys decided to head to their guest houses. At that point I got up and told him I'd head to my room too. He looked at the time and asked me why I was ending the night so early. I told him that I was really tired from all that walking and that I wanted to be up early. He didn't push any further as there were other people around. I went back to the room filled with anticipation and dread, but thankfully nothing happened that night. The next day I checked out, but my bus wasn't until 5 p.m. I didn't want to be left alone with the owner, so I met up with the guys, leaving my luggage at the reception, which was also the eating area. When I came back, I picked up my bag, thanked him, and left in a hurry. I still have no idea if it was the owner or the only helper that I saw around. Whoever it was trying to forcefully get through my door, let's not meet. I may have been 8 to 9 years old. I lived in a nice little middle-class neighborhood. One of my best friends, Raven, lived across the street diagonally, one house down, so I often spent evenings at her home after school. Raven's mom would always call my mom to let her know I was leaving and to expect me in the next minute or so. This way mom knew to unlock our front door. Often she stood and watched from the screen door to make sure I got across okay. I had begun noticing this beat-up red car, possibly an old Volkswagen or Buick, that would pass by almost every night as I ran back across the street. I would always head home just after dark, so possibly around 8:30 anytime I was leaving Raven's house. It was always rolling super slow, speed limit was 25 miles per hour, and I want to say this vehicle was always passed at maybe half that. One night as I was leaving perhaps a bit later than usual, I stepped out the side door of Raven's house just as the car was about to pass the house completely. It stopped in the road and backed up as I approached the side of the road. The window rolled down just as the car stopped in front of me. A little woman with short reddish brown hair and blue framed glasses was smiling sweetly at me. "Hi sweetheart, it's a little late for you to be out right now, isn't it?" she asked me. Her voice was low and pleasant. "No, mom lets me. I'm just walking home," I replied stupidly. "Oh gosh, how silly of your mom. There's all kinds of bad people out late at night. Where do you live, sugar? I'll give you a ride." Just then, my mom came bursting out the front door and screamed, "Leave her alone," as she began running to me. The woman's pleasant demeanor dropped and I heard her mutter a word, possibly as she slammed her foot on the gas and took off at well over the speed limit. She didn't stop at the nearby stop sign, just blasted through it to make her escape. I got a nice lecture that night, but also a lot of tight hugs. My mom was super glad that she chose to look out the storm door to check on me instead of just letting me wander home. I could have been taken, and she told me as much. I cannot remember if the police were called, but I never interacted with any officers. This doesn't end here though. Like most little kids, I really liked setting up lemonade stands. Like most little kids, I also enjoyed hand making and baking cakes and brownies and cookies, and also selling those at my lemonade stands. About 2 weeks after the prior incident, a beautiful sunny Saturday, mom helped me with the baking and helped me make lemonade and set me up in the front yard with my sign. She had been paranoid ever since the prior incident and had hardly let me out of her sight, aside from school and the bus, and this was no different. She stayed outside with me all while I sold my little treats to passerby, until she had to run to the restroom. It would obviously be a pain to take everything down and bring it inside while she went, and then to bring it all back out and set it up again. She figured I'd be okay for a few minutes, considering it was the middle of the afternoon and usually kidnappers aren't that stupid. Mom left me alone for several minutes when she went to the bathroom and presumably went to grab a snack as she was gone for 10 or so minutes. A familiar face walked up, about 8 minutes in. She appeared from around some bushes down the street. I didn't see her in the distance walking up. I honestly saw her stand up from behind some bushes and brush herself off and begin walking towards me. Her clothes were smart and sophisticated looking, almost like a pantsuit. It was a real clash with how ratty her car had been, but that same placating smile was on her face and her eyes glinted behind the same glasses. "Aw cute, a lemonade stand. Hi again, sweetie. Sorry for bothering you the other night. I didn't realize how close to home you were. Mama told me to not talk to you. Go away." I said it as meanly as I could muster, but mom had rightfully made me so frightened of this woman that I'm sure I just sounded like the scared little girl I was. "Come on now, Mary." She spoke my real name, first and last, and my eyes got big. "I'm a friend of your parents. I live down the street. Remember, we met at the pool this past summer. I had no recollection of her. If you're their friend, why did you leave so quick?" "Mom," I began shouting for my mother. This made her crouch down in front of my table, eye to eye with me. "We don't need to do that. I just want to talk to you. You like to bake, right? I have a really fancy kitchen with a nice baker's oven. All sorts of cool gadgets to make baking cupcakes and stuff like this super fun." "No, no, no, Mama." I stood up and pushed the table into this woman and started running for the front door. This woman kicked the folding table away and started to chase me until my mom appeared in the doorway. She flung the door open and I barreled into her and the woman stopped running and stood in the yard. "What are you doing to my daughter?" my mom shouted at her. "My God, your child is rude." I was just trying to buy a cupcake and she shoved the table into me and ran. Now I have lemonade all over my clothes. The woman lied through her teeth. I don't think she was expecting my mom to come back. That's the lady from that night in the car. I was now trying to get around my mom and hide behind her. My mom pulled out her cell phone and this time I know she called the police. The woman immediately ran off back the direction she came. The cops appeared, one took statements while the other one patrolled the neighborhood searching for her. They ended up finding her car parked at the grocery store that was up the road about half a mile up the other end of the neighborhood. They waited for her to show up and claim it. She never did. They couldn't find her. So, random lady in the red beater, please, let's not meet again. This happened a couple years ago when I was 16. I had just recently got my first job at a chain sandwich shop. It was located in the shopping mall outlet at the far end. There were quite a few businesses around it, including a restaurant down the way and a super Target on the other side of the mall on the far end of the parking lot. My parents were always super protective and taught me at a young age to be aware of my surroundings and protect myself, and rarely even let me walk alone to begin with. On this particular day, I had left my phone at home because I wasn't allowed to have it at work and had a daily time limit on it anyways. Thanks, Mom. I had ended up finishing up my shift early, and my mom was still shopping at the Target, so told me to go ahead and walk over to meet her. I began walking towards the Target and had to wait for passing cars. One silver car stopped and let me walk across. I smiled and waved thank you, and the man in the car did the same, and turned on the street going the direction I was walking. I didn't think anything of it, as it was a relatively busy parking lot and most of the shops are over on the other side by the Target. A minute or two goes by and I spot the same car now driving in the opposite direction towards me. I make a mental note but think I'm just overreacting. That is, until he turns back around. At this point I'm concerned and notice I'm now a part of the mall that's a little less crowded with a more empty parking lot. I get this uneasy feeling in my stomach that he's following me, and to test my hypothesis, I switch my direction. Instead of heading towards the Target, I walk towards the restaurant. The car immediately turns into the parking lot. I switch into freak out mode and speed walk to the front doors. In my time of panic, I didn't realize that the parking spots for the restaurant were completely empty. I pull on the doors and they're locked. They were apparently closed on Sundays. At this point, the man in the gray car was parked in the lot in front of the restaurant watching me. The way he was parked, I would have to pass this car to go back on the path I originally was on. I stand there a moment pretending not to notice and think about what to do next. I obviously don't want to walk any closer to the car than I already was. I decide to cut through the side shrubbery of the restaurant and head towards the closest shop I could find. The gray car comes out of the parking lot still following me and I bolt into the dollar store across from the restaurant. I see the gray car park and I walk up to one of the cashiers and explain what happened and I ask if I could use her phone to speak to my mother. She says of course and tells me to stay in here until my mom comes to get me. I call my mom and tell her about the car and she of course freaks out. By this time, I think the man in the car caught on because he eventually backs out and leaves. My mom shows up and thanks the cashier lady and we drive to the Target. Aside from us both being shaken up, we were okay. It definitely ruined me for walking alone again. Now that I'm an adult and live on my own, I carry pepper spray and a pocket knife anywhere I go just in case. I rarely walk anywhere unless I'm with someone or it's only a few minutes away. It still scares me today to think of what could have happened, or what that man's intentions were. So, to the man in the gray car, let's not meet again. Alright, so that's it. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, consider liking this video and subscribing to my channel. Let me know what you thought of these stories in the comments below. But as always,
Have a nice day.